Very warm welcome. Good evening. HD from maverickstar. I just thought I'd talk a few things over with you guys about some of the current events that are taking place and probably shed a bit of light on why they're taking place. And again, I know I've showed a few of you this. The Secretary Generals of the United Nations opening remarks at the press briefing on policy brief on information integrity on digital platforms. What they're talking about is social media platforms like YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, etc. Before I begin, just want to say a big thanks to the few people that are still holding on the lines with me, and now is more than ever a time to do that. But a lot of people don't realise that because of the current economic downturn that we're experiencing. I think it's much worse, by the way, than what is being led to us to believe. I think they're keeping the lid on it, because if they really announced how bad things were, things would be much worse. And maybe in this video I can point a few fingers at some of the reasons why those things are happening. So I'll just read his comment. The proliferation of hate and lies on the digital space is causing grave global harm. Now it's fueling conflict, death and destruction. Now it is threatening democracy and human rights. Now it is undermining public health and climate action now. So many powerful words there, like grave global harm, conflict, death and destruction, threatening democracy, threatening human rights, and undermining public health, and leading to the course of destruction of the climate. That is what the United Nations is accusing people like me that are receiving the other end of treatment, because they don't like what I talk about, simply because it doesn't fall in line with them pocketing a lot of money. And that's what I wanted to talk about with you guys. It doesn't take a mastermind criminal to work out what their game is. It's quite clear and simple. You create a problem like CO2 and you rely on the fact that the public aren't intelligent enough to work it out for themselves, because not all of them are scientists. They don't understand the chemical formula of CO2 or what it does, and actually what the benefits of CO2 are, or as opposed to what the negative effects are, or the quantities in our atmosphere. And a lot of these politicians that have recently been asked a simple question can't tell anybody that asks the questions to them how much CO2 is in our atmosphere and answer it accurately. I'll tell you now, the amount of atmospheric CO2 in our atmosphere is 0.4%, and it's a trace gas. And what the trace element of that sentence means is simply it's hardly there. It's just a trace of it there. So there is no way that that could be responsible for causing any changes on our planet. But they don't want you to know that. What they want you to know is that there is a problem, and that is the cause of the problem. And on the back of that problem, the United Nations alone, just alone, want to raise £500 billion every single year. And I want you to understand that there are maybe close on 8 billion of us on this planet. So if you work and you pay your taxes, and even if you don't work, it doesn't make any difference, because you're paying taxes regardless. Even if you're on benefits, you got to understand that as soon as you start to use the currency, you are taxed on using the currency. Not only are you taxed on your earnings from your employee or your self-employment, but you're also taxed on everything you spend money on. And that's why the real amount of money that we earn when we earn a pound is probably close, or a dollar is probably close to, out of the pound, maybe 30p if we're lucky, and out of the dollar 30 cents if we're lucky. So it gives you an idea But what I'm saying is, it's no rocket scientist, needs to explain to you how they are going about committing this big and ugly crime, because they are stealing taxpayers' money, but the way in which they're doing it is justified. And if they can justify the expenditure, then they can pacify anybody that questions it. And what we've got going on here is friends of very close people within the United Nations, that when they've gathered this money from all the countries that make up the United Nation, which is pretty much all of Europe. I know European Union's got their own little kitty going over there as well. That's another syndicate of mafia. Well, we got the United Nations, is the other arm of the mafia. And, what they do with that money is they bring it into a pot, and then they start to divide it out between people that are close friends. And those close friends have to have, a legitimate, according to anyone that is going to have a quick glance at that company, a legitimate reason to have some of that funding. And we're talking about £500 billion, which is really the biggest and greatest robbery that takes place every single year. And the people that they're robbing it off is everybody. And because it is everybody that they're robbing it off, we are all complacent to that fact, that we are no better than the next person next to us, so it's okay. We're all in it together, aren't we? So let's be ripped off altogether by these organisations. But it's pretty disgusting what they start spending that money on, because it goes on private yachts, private jets, the things that they put down in their expenditures when they work for companies is absolutely disgraceful, and it's nothing short of total corruption. And it is disgraceful, because at the same time as the money is being raised for things like CO2, we see, one in, 10,000 or 50 in 10,000 people homeless. And I'm sure you would agree with me that money would be better off, rehousing that person, putting them into some form of livable security so that they can enjoy some form of quality of life, whilst these people that make up less than 1% just squander it on luxury items and luxury lifestyles and lavish lifestyles. That's the be all and end all of it. What we're doing is being deliberately bamboozled into the belief that we need to support this in order to keep our earth safe. That after, okay, I know I'm going to be held accountable for this, but let's just say, for argument's sake, human beings have been on this planet for 45,000 years, or even 100,000 years. We go through a glacial cycle every 100,000 years, and we're about to go through one of these. We could be already literally on the precipice of passing through that thermocline, which shuts down the agricultural production over the northern hemisphere. And from the United Nations, what we are getting back from them is that they want to encourage 13 countries to ban agricultural production in a time where agricultural land is going offline simply because of natural occurrences. It doesn't make any sense, and you can understand why they're not interested in paying too much attention to these real anomalies that are building up around them now, and including the magnetic migration and the seeding of the jet streams, and as a result of that, the fragmentation of the polar and subtropical jet streams, both over the northern and southern hemispheres, dislocating and mixing. And now, recently, over the last 5 years, we're getting subtropical over the equatorial region of our planet mixing as well. They are completely oblivious to it, because they are more concerned about their Hermes, their the Chanel and other leading brands, as well as their 100-meter yachts and private jets, in a nutshell. It is absolutely, totally a complete and utter public mistrust of money, and they do have an accountability to use those public funds in, a concise and appropriate manner. And what we're seeing is a complete, basically it's nothing short of laundering what's going on. And even, the slightest intelligent lawyer could work this out and know that that was the fact and bring a case against them. But every case that comes against them, I guess it just gets fucking brought out like everything else in this world that we live in. But again, I want to bring you back to the fact that they alone, the United Nations, want to raise 500 billion on the back of CO2 causing climate change, when it's a load of nonsense. And you know where that money's going. It's going to projects that don't come for fulfillment. And I can, and this is not new, guys. This has been going on quite a lot lately. These wars are excuses to lose lots of taxpayers' money. And we've heard that there has been container loads, literally steel containers, arrive in Ukraine, where the paperwork has been lost, and then all of a sudden the doors have been opened and it has been full to the roof and to the back of the container, full of American dollars. And we've had people that are part of Congress that have come out and said that it's absolutely necessary that we send cash to these organisations, so that, because it is a cash business in the way things are working over there in the Ukraine right now, and that's why they need large sums of cash, and therefore it's justified. As well as I know that cash is not traceable to large extents, and therefore, like we have seen in the Ukraine embassy, under the sofa, a whole pile of cash. And then we've heard that somebody's been dismissed over it. Not sent to prison, dismissed. Now, people are dying in the Ukraine war. Over 100,000, 200,000 are dying. And there's this level of corruption going on. Because, this is just another scheme to lose public tax Westerners' money. And they're doing it not just in wars, not just on the climate, but anything else that they can conjure up as a good excuse for them to do it. I mean, let's just go back over what Biden said. We're going to send out of this 130 billion, I think it was, so much to the Ukraine, so much to Israel to support their efforts, and then we are going to replenish the stocks of ammunitions that we have actually give both these conflicts. I think there needs to be more accountability to the use of public taxpayers' assets, because that's what we're talking about here. These are assets that we've already brought that should be in the stock rooms ready for us to use for our protection, but they have been given away to countries that are not going to give or pay for that back. So that, like, there's another scheme right there and then. Every time our Western countries now get involved in conflict, there's no auditability as to how many bullets, how many bombs, how many missiles, cruise missiles was actually used in that conflict. There is just an end bill to say we need to make more. And of course, when you've got companies like Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed, Martin and others, I'm talking about the military complex here, there is the route for the money to just leak into these countries and then come back filtering at a later date to the people that actually organised the passing of the funding. And of course we saw the same thing happen during the COVID vaccines, and that is very disappointing, and that's all I say about that. What the damage that has caused to industry, and this as well. You saw the shops that had to close during that lockdown period, where they totally abused our human rights and freedoms illegally, but still nevertheless did it and justified doing it. Well, we've still not recovered the backlashes of those events. So we live in a time right now where the level of corruption and the filtration of your taxpayers' money is leaking like crazy. And as a result, obviously, you know, we can't just keep giving this money away to people around the world and justifying the losses of this money without it coming to some significant point in the future. And that is what we're about to experience. In my personal opinion, we are about to experience the backlash of all the money that has been stolen, pilferated out of the taxpayer's purse to friends, family members. We saw it in the British government. I could mention examples, but we know it's exactly what the case is. And now, you know, the reckoning book is coming very close. And again, you know, who's going to pick up the bill for this? Not necessarily us at the beginning, but, you know, here's the thing. I don't think they realise, and they've got the intelligence to realise this, that if you start, you know, severely cutting and trimming back the roots of any plant, you know, the foliage above is going to start to suffer. So those rich and elite people on the top of the foliage are going to start to notice the problems themselves. And you know what they say, you reap what you sow, and I have no sympathy whatsoever for them, you know, because they deserve it. They brought the pack of cards down around them through the prolific criminal behaviour. And it's just a matter of time. And then, after all that, there is, you know, the natural occurring events, which they have spent zero on, to my knowledge, to this date, like the magnetic reversal, the returning back into another glacial period. You know, I have people in the comment section, and I will have today, that will say, this is not going to happen for another 1,000 years, the magnetic reversal, and your glacial period won't be returning for another 1,000 years as well. They like to forecast it way out into the future, so they believe it's not something that needs to be acted on right now. And that's just a false way of looking at anything, because as soon as you know that there is a potential problem about to arise, would you agree with me, the sooner you deal with it, the better. So right now at this point, you know, I've got to say, I know people are going to disagree with me. They're going to say, oh, they've built their bunkers, this, that and the other. The individual rich people might have done that, but the governments, for the the general public, wouldn't have put anything away. For the human continuity, they wouldn't have put nothing away. They'll put it away for, you know, sources of control, what they'll need during these times and after these times, if they manage to last that long, which I doubt. But that's all. There'll be nothing put away for you or your loved ones or your family members. Yet right now, you know, things are starting to heat up. Do you see that? The flames are getting bigger. You know, we are in the year of activity, especially with regards to the magnetic pole reversal taking place. We have seen more changes this year than any other year. You can take that however you want. Is that signs of things are starting to progress faster now? Are we going to start to see some serious changes with that? Look at the climatic events, which have displaced millions and millions of people around the world and led to the unfortunate deaths of a lot of people in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Just climatic events. We got natural disasters on our front door, and these governments are more concerned with shutting people up that are trying to help people, like on the digital space, like here at the observatory. And I've got to say, I've never witnessed anything like it. You know, in a time where more has happened in 1 year with the magnetic pole reversal and climbing. You know, I've never witnessed such low levels of funding. It is shameful, because I've said this before. If you haven't got the inclination and the motivation and an opportunity to do something about this yourself, then you should absolutely be supporting somebody that does. And we've been here for a decade. So, you know, with that, guys, I'm going to say, look, there's a link down there. You want to get behind us, and we can still keep this information going for you guys, and keep informing you of these events and letting you know and keeping you in the loop of information, then, you know, it requires, and you should not think any otherwise, a little bit of support. Doesn't take a lot of you. So, huge thanks for those people that are still hanging on with us. As always, you take care of your loved ones, so what I usually do. Bye for now.